All right, welcome back. Hopefully everyone had a nice little break and got to check out some booths. We're going to kick this midday section. We have two sessions here before lunch, so we'll call it midday session off with a panel. I think this is a very important topic: introducing XR to your organization. And the host of this panel is Susanne Haspinger, the one of the co-founders of Holo-Light, also the COO. I found out one of the other co-founders is her husband, which I said, that's impressive if you can work with your spouse. I don't know if I could do that. But Holo-Light is one of the most powerful, or maybe I should say the most powerful, immersive streaming platform for AR, VR. Let's give it up to Susanne and the crew.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start with introducing my beautiful panelists today. But instead of telling you what they are doing from my side, I would ask, give it a round, give the audience a short introduction about yourself and tell us shortly what you are doing with XR in your companies.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Doan. I'm a technology strategist for a company called Genentech. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of a larger company called Roche that's been around for 128 years. We have work in the pharmaceutical space as well as the diagnostic space. So some of the work that we do with XR is on the diagnostic side. Instead of transporting these million-dollar pieces of equipment, we leverage XR to share the equipment, how it's used, and so on, and that experience. On the pharma side, we have a drug that basically we inject into the eye, and to train the doctors on how to use it, we leverage XR. So.
Hello, I'm Allie Preisinger, and I work for American Airlines. And my role there is leading the team that does all the web-based training, media, and virtual reality training for our flight attendants. And so we've had XR implemented in our initial qualification training since 2018. And we use it mainly to provide extra practice on our door procedures and arrival procedures and for aircraft familiarization. And we recently went through a major upgrade of our system where we went from a backpack closed network-based system to the Oculus Quest 2 on the cloud-based system. And then last year, we removed the hand controllers, so we're all hand tracking. And next year, we're hoping to move to Quest 3 and implement some more scenario-based modules that will use AI to do more of those soft skills and simulate distractions while flight attendants are arming or disarming their door, and also de-escalation.
Thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Daryl Tom. I'm with United Airlines innovation lab called AirShop. We started this department 3 years ago because we figured that we needed a department specifically to experiment and implement cutting-edge technology such as XR. So what we use XR for, we started implementing XR in training to prove out that this technology works, and moved on to the latest use case, which is built for our branding team in real estate. So our real estate team would use the platform to build airport from scratch without having to, work with architects directly immediately. So they get to test the environment virtually and get to fill up the space before architecture drawing. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rob Alley. I am Senior Director of Maintenance Training for Ryder. And we haven't been around for 120 years, but it's 1933 is when we were established. From an XR standpoint, we're using it in a number of different ways. We have 3 or 4 primary divisions at Ryder. For mine, with what's called FMS, or Fleet Management Services. We're using it for technician training and for remote. We're looking at it for remote assistance as well. We are very early in our journey through this XR platform, and so I'll probably have a different perspective than a lot of other folks up here on the panel, but look forward to your questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isaac Jones. I'm a full stack engineer at Lockheed Martin. I'm on the IT Research and Exploration team, better known as IT Rex, and we have been exploring the art of the possible when it comes to XR within the Lockheed Martin intranet.
Nice. Hey guys, good morning. I'm Eamon Powers. I'm the network training manager for Bombardier, which is an aircraft manufacturer based in Montreal. I represent all of the service center training, so all of the technicians that work on, all 1,200 technicians that work on our aircraft around the world. At night, I moonlight as a researcher, doing research specifically in immersive media. I have one of my accolades is, we worked on a VR engine training program that was one of the first, if not the first program to get recognized and certified in lieu of on-aircraft training on one of our engines. So yeah, happy to talk.
Thank you. So maybe some of you are already a bit more advanced with your journey in XR. How did you start? How did you identify your use case in the beginning? Can you give us some advice for that?
I could start.
Perfect.
So in a previous life, I worked for Flight Safety International, which is a simulator company that does training for pilots and mechanics around the world. And so we had been really familiar on the pilot side with immersive media. We use full motion flight simulators, which are incredibly advanced and incredibly expensive, but we had never really converted that technology down to kind of the technician level. So, yeah, when I'd say basically, right when Oculus started becoming a little more palatable, we were using the HoloLens, like first gen items. And as soon as the technology got to a point where we were happy with like the latency and the fidelity of the physical movements, that is when we were fairly early adopters in XR in general, and continue to be. So for us, maybe it was a bit easier because we had that kind of many years of advanced simulation experience, but so it was a slightly easier conversation. But I'd say if you're in any space that's what you're doing, it's an easy parlay, if you will.
Yeah, I can give a few tidbits. One of the good things about working on a team like IT Rex within LLM is that the customers that we work with, the internal customers, they come to us with the use cases already. And one of the big things that my team does is enablement. So sometimes we are proactive in going out and exploring a technology and seeing, is there a team within Lockheed Martin that could use this? But we just try to take it, integrate it into our research environment, and just see if there's any value there. And then we share that with the larger enterprise and see if there's a team that would like to adopt it.
For us, we have 800 service locations across the United States and Canada, and probably about 4,500 technicians. And so for us, we try to be as data-driven as we can. Where does the data say that the shoe is pinching, so to speak? And then is that your use case? And in a lot of instances, it is. And one of the things that that I had planned on talking about at some point this afternoon is it's a great use case, but do you have content? Do you have the AR content that you can incorporate into that training? And so sometimes your use case is data driven, sometimes it is the content that you can accumulate, that you can either create yourself or borrow from some of your OEM partners. And so that's always a challenge as well. So somewhere those two meet, and that's where we come up with our use cases.
For our department, we started by educating our organization with the proof of concept we built, which is unaccompanied minor training. Once we exposed what we've built to the organization, we had branding and real estate that were interested to build something with us because we're renovating a lot of our hubs. So this could prove a lot of value once we have that up and running.
So I would say in any organization, your biggest issue is going to be getting the budget for the virtual reality or any XR. And so you have to justify the value it's going to bring to your learners and your organization. For us, we have 25,000 plus flight attendants that come back for yearly training, plus our initial training new hires. So the equipment that they use to train on, which is simulated doors, we call them cabin trainers, we don't have enough for everybody to get all that practice that they needed. So that was the initial justification to bring it into the organization, was just less wear and tear on our actual equipment and giving them more practice that they wouldn't get. Our long-term goals are for it to be recognized for at least some of our qualifications through the FAA, so that we could replace some of the time that they're spending on the trainers to use that time for more valuable things, for things they could do in virtual reality. So
I want to take a step back and try to figure out, like, because one of the questions was, how do we get started with XR in our company, right? We don't know what we don't know. So what we've done was do road shows with XR equipment to share with people. It might just be Beat Saber games, let them play with that. But it sparks up the ideas. We leverage, we call them tech expos, road shows. We use the digital signage on our campus to play videos of what the possibilities are and give people an idea of where the hardware is at, where the technology is at, and then they reach out to us with use cases. When I think about memories, right, we go, how do we develop memories? And memories usually come from experiences. Well, from the first panelists that we had up here, something that stood out was whenever they refer to XR, they always attach the word experience. So there's no better, I would say, training that creates those memories than leveraging XR.
That's a really, really good point. So you just told us how you started. What would you do differently if you had to start from the beginning? What would you tell your younger selves, just being at the beginning of XR? What should you do? What should you definitely not do? Can you share with us something about that?
Well, my take on it is that I probably wouldn't have changed anything that we've done so far, just because I think easing into it, slow and steady, is a good approach. Sometimes you want to take something and ingest it quickly, and you think you're going to get a bunch of adoption, but sometimes, especially at a company like Lockheed Martin, you have to kind of ease into it and take your time, introduce people, and see if you can generate interest.
I don't have that luxury. I was speaking with a group of people previously outside and had mentioned that on multiple occasions during this process, I've paid what I call the dummy tax and made some mistakes that I would definitely not want to make again. And just really quickly, the things that I'm really speaking to people that are just getting started. And if I can help you prevent some of these things, first of all, and this was mentioned earlier, become instant partners with your IT security folks. As you are looking at implementing some of these solutions, whether it's hardware or software, do not go down a road of weeks or months and kind of get go fever and then go to your IT folks and say, this is what we're looking at doing. You may find that you spin your wheels a little bit. So as early as in the process as you can, partner with IT. The other two folks in your organizations that I would probably contact are, again, depending on your use cases and your hardware, for us and technicians and wearables in maintenance shops where we're actually doing work, you're going to want to touch base with your safety folks and make sure that they're okay with people that are actually doing work in a rider shop or wherever you're at with a wearable that may be affecting vision somehow. If it has a battery pack, is there a cord in the back? All of these things your safety partners are going to want to be aware of and give you some guidance on. And then finally, as soon as you can, I would contact your your procurement or your accounting partners and let them know what you're looking at doing, because as you all well know, some of these solutions are not inexpensive. And so those are the three folks that I would engage early, as early as possible.
For me, if I had to start over, I would worry less about the little things like aesthetics of how everything's looking in the environment. I would focus more on use cases, because that's what's going to bring value to the project itself. And also have regular check-in with your end users, do a lot of user testing and get feedback from them of how the project can bring value to them and for their day-to-day.
I would echo what Rob said and what was said in the panelists earlier as far as your IT team, but specifically your Wi-Fi team, and really having someone assigned to you or that project the whole time, because that's been one of our biggest hurdles, is having strong enough Wi-Fi to run the virtual reality. Also, if you're using XR for training, I would highly suggest not to have controllers. We early on decided that the controllers were not a good thing. They're spending too much time learning the controllers and not the procedures that we were trying to teach. And then everything had to be reprogrammed to support the hand tracking. And just having an operating budget from the beginning, because we started off without one and we still don't have one really. And so every year it's more justification. And obviously it's not going to run itself. Your procedures are going to change. Whatever you're using it for, the technology is going to change. You have to have an operating budget every year to keep supporting this, or you wasted all the money in the first place.
So I'm going to echo everyone else. Network and security. IT partners, definitely, that's the first branch. If I think about what I would do differently, with our company, we are pretty large, and we kind of poked around and we started discovering there were pockets of people trying to do the same stuff. So what I would have done was maybe leverage everyone's individual efforts and collectively put them together and kind of have a uniform solution there. At the beginning, we were also very wanting to find that standard, that headset that we wanted uniform, be the uniform standard for the globe. Then we started realizing it's still emerging tech, and some pros and cons on this one, pros and cons on that one. So for now, just be open to the idea that it might be a mixed environment.
You good, Eamon, or?
I will add to it. One thing, I mean, two things I would say. One, is someone asking you for this, or are you thinking this is a better idea, right? Because there's always something that's currently happening, whether that's a gap or that's some physical thing or some other thing, right? So, from my perspective, obviously I'm from the training side, so that's the use case is pretty straightforward, right? This is a good tool to train these tasks. But in talking with folks consistently, the objectives of the project are unclear, right? It's always just like, hey, how do we use this VR thing? Oh, okay, yeah, that means nothing, right? Get really specific about your objectives. Right, and I mean like the verbs you use when you're coming up with your training. What verbs are you using? If those verbs mean, oh, guy's got to move his hand this much, right? That matters a lot, right? It matters quite a bit. And you can prove that rather rapidly in terms of retention and in terms of cost support quality and stuff like that. So the sooner you can connect real learning objectives, if you're in a training context like myself, to dollars and cents, everyone understands dollars and cents. The second thing I would do is, while I echo everyone's agreement on IT and getting support within the organization, do not go for the top tier thing. Go get your GoPro 3D thing, stitch that stuff together. Dude, you got to get a proof of concept fast. Speed is your friend, right? Speed's your friend in terms of whether you're trying to sell it or it's being sold to you, right? You want to see something quick, and you want to be able to prove the case rather rapidly. If you're working on an airplane, guess what? There's tons of airplane models existing for free today. that you could put in a headset tomorrow, right? And you could show what it would look like, and people can conceptualize what that might be for your aircraft, for your boat, for your, vehicle, right? Iterate is your friend. People want to see progress, so be progressive about it.
Thank you. So you were already talking about Wi-Fi restrictions in the IT. Isaac, you told me you have a bit of special position with the Wi-Fi and IT department as you're using streaming. How did this show in your process?
Specifically the connection issues. Oh God. So we're actually we worked through quite a bit of them. Specifically speaking, we have a VPN that we ran into a lot of issues because it's going through 2 firewalls. So often we have to track the connection, which means that you have to find out who has the ability to query, these signals. And so it took a bit of time to find out who that person is. I have a very reliable contact now at LM that I probably bug twice a week. So thank you, Melissa. I know she's probably not listening to this, but
Shout out to Melissa.
Help. Yeah, shout out to Melissa, and she's a rock star. But yeah, just getting familiar with firewall requests, SSO, that's a huge one. Having to stay within the intranet and not having to go out to use another, what do you call it, identity provider. Just a couple things that we ran into with connection tracking. Did I answer that well?
Thank you. And we already heard the topic requirements for the hardware. As I think Ali with American Airlines, Iman, both of you have quite a history with XR. How did your journey between the devices did go so far? And are you already at the end?
Well, as I was saying, that we upgraded from a backpack model, which was the computer was in the backpack and everything was connected to a headset. And that was pretty old technology from 2018. And we just upgraded last year, or maybe the year before, because in 2020 we had no new hire training, so everything was shut down. So we did have to go through a whole new justification process of should we put the VR back up. We used data to justify that. And we actually had a graduate student from University of North Texas do a study on the times that people used virtual reality in training and did not. And we were able to show a slightly significant improvement on their drill scores. So that helped us get justification to be able to get the Oculus. So that was hard getting that upgrade. And it took a lot longer to go through the upgrade than we would have thought. So I would just say a lot of time. And like I already said, the hand controllers was the biggest issue. We kept making our tutorial longer. We would add on training of the instructors there showing them, but it really didn't matter. The majority of students struggled with the hand controllers, and they were not then giving good feedback on surveys. We weren't really getting an improvement on their actual in-person drills that we were looking for. So removing the hand controllers added another 4 months onto our upgrade process. So hopefully I'm answering this question.
Yeah. So when we develop, we're fairly agnostic to the headsets. We develop everything in Unity. So, exporting to a new platform is not necessarily the hardest thing to do, although we don't do that regularly, right? That's only something that's, if something's really blown us away in terms of capability, that's really that is the thing we look at. One thing I would say is, know who your learners are. At least in our case, we're training, right? So know who your learners are. In aviation, it's 88% male. Right, so to find a 25-year-old guy that's never picked up an Xbox controller, that's rare, right? So we use the controllers all the time because they are good facsimiles for tools, right? So to pick up a tool requires you to go and reach for it, and so the controllers actually wind up being somewhat helpful in our particular use case. But as Ali said, your use case depends on who your learners are, who your participants are. And then I think it's important that you build in a way with your developers to make it that if there's a big leap in capability, that you can make that leap rather quickly, especially if you're like a consumer, kind of a consumer front-facing people, right? If you're doing internal training, maybe this is a different thing, but if you're working directly with customers, yeah, you want to show them the new thing, right? You want to give them the shiny stuff, right? So you got to be ready for, go to things like this and kind of keep yourself immersed in the immersive world, if you will. Wow. Excellent pun, me.
I want to just add too, in the midst of that upgrade, our vendor made it so that we can have everything that's inside the headset. Also, we can access that on the iPad and on a computer. And that's really helped our learners to have another way to access if they feel dizzy when they're in the headsets, so they can just use the iPad or use the computer. It also helped with justification of we're not adding time onto our daily schedule because they can take that iPad home and do the same practice at home. And so it just helps the learners even more.
Thank you. So what I get is there's not this only one device you're using and you plan to use forever. So how do you deal with planning to upgrade to the new generations? I mean, you're at AES. Chances are you will find the new device. Any plans for that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think you see the advancements that are happening, right? I think in some circumstances, like if you've got a situation that's working really well, like we use the HP Omnicept now, right? And platform-wise, that works really well for us, right? And so I'm not necessarily looking for something for the sake of replacing that. But yeah, as you see more, kind of improved pass-through technology, when you see better hand gestures, like there are obviously things that, again, if you know your verbs, right, well in terms of your learning objectives, you then will have a better understanding of what those things mean when you see new technology capable. It's not just better visual fidelity, so much of it is a better situational fidelity or cognitive fidelity. Those things matter quite a bit when you're talking about learning objectives. So on one hand, you want that, right? And then on the other hand, you don't want to get so caught up that you're just constantly going to a new platform every 5 seconds, right? Because that doesn't help anybody.
I can take a stab at this from like a DoD perspective. Usually takes quite a while to get new devices approved and stuff, but there are some pain points out there. I heard earlier some people are looking at HoloLens devices, and we know Microsoft won't be supporting those upcoming here. So, but yeah, just I'd say there probably is a plan to move up, but it takes a while to get those approvals in place and to get legal to look at contracts or whatever it takes to integrate it within a DoD-facing company like Lockheed Martin.
Thank you. So another point, what's your biggest risk from your point of view for XR and starting with XR?
I'll start with that one. Your biggest risk with starting XR in your space is the naysayers, right? It's too big, it's too bulky, it's too heavy. A couple years back at this summit, there was a distinguished gentleman from Radeon who did a talk, and he was talking about his smart glasses and how at first he was sharing those same ideas. And then the pandemic hit, and then those glasses that he was saying they're too big, too bulky, were not going to ever be used, all of a sudden became the most popular thing, right? So he realized after that was like, they might not be perfect, but they are perfect when you need them. And if they bring in the value, like with the learning use case, and they really help you retain the information, then they're helpful then. So you don't have to wear them 8 hours a day, but they are useful when you do use them, so.
You go ahead.
A couple of other risks that just immediately come to mind, and we've talked about it, a few of them again. IT security is a risk, and that cannot be ignored. User acceptance is also a risk, and we've had different pieces of hardware that some were successful, some not, as if we have a very diverse workforce at Ryder, and we have a lot of people who English is not their first language, and with some of these hardware devices and the software that comes along with them, a lot of times did not respond well to heavy accents, and we really took a hit from a user acceptance standpoint along those lines. So again, get that feedback as early as possible.
Yeah, I was going to say IT security is definitely one of the biggest risks, especially, again, DoD-facing company. Another thing I was going to say is infrastructure challenges. One of the biggest things that happens in my role is that when we have a vendor come to us and they say, oh, we have this architecture, we proved it out with this company, this company, this company. It's almost never the case at Lockheed Martin. We always have to take extra steps to make sure that integration goes smoothly within our environment. And I call it the Lockheed multiplier. It usually takes 3 times longer to get something within our environment than it does in something that might be a little bit more public. One other risk I would say is working with people across different time zones that can kind of take down the speed, as you were saying, Eamon, and also just device management. Once upon a time, someone left a device at a 7-Eleven in Denver, and fortunately, he was forgiven and given another device. Thank you, Darren. I'll pass it back to you.
I was just going to say another risk is negative training. It really takes a lot for the quality assurance of testing out what is built in these modules. Like for our examples with the flight attendants, they have to do their procedures exactly as they're supposed to be doing them. Our doors have to look exactly how they are. And that's what some of the upgrade took a long time, is just going through the modules over and over and making sure it's exactly right, because you don't want to train on something that negatively impacts what they're learning. So from a training perspective. And then another risk is just if you lose leadership buy-in and you waste all that money because you don't continue forward with the program.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what everyone's here is saying. I think the education piece is pretty big because we might know a lot about XR because we're building it, but a lot of people in the organization have never seen a headset before. So definitely introduction and education of the headset's important, because once you get skepticism is from higher up, it's really hard to push anything forward.
Thank you. So one of the last questions I also told you would come besides the Q&A questions already in the app. You already mentioned hardware platform security issues. Hardware and platforms are basically one of the main topics people come across when starting. Any advice on how to handle that challenge?
Well, thankfully we had a really great vendor in Holo-Light, shameless plug. They kind of had an architecture ready-made for us that just took some few tweaks to get it working on the LMI. And I think that that experience in integrating that solution, and also the confidence that they had in that solution to work on a GovCloud environment like ours, that really helped. So again, shout out to you guys.
One thing that almost goes back to excuse me, the previous question, but is relevant to the hardware selection, is know the complexity of your business, I would say, right? Because I know one of the questions that was in the chat was about XAPI to LMS and stuff like that. Well, if you're an instructor-led organization where you still have an instructor present, if the headset's at someone's house, then yeah, I'd probably say that integration is really important, and you want to make sure that the headset can communicate to your LMS and that your programmers know how to connect the two. But if you're an instructor-led environment and you're here and you're just trying to get into it and you have a shoestring budget, if you still have an instructor there, do you need it to connect to anything? I'd say that's a real question that oftentimes doesn't get asked, because almost every headset is very good on its own, right? And again, if you're just starting off, just like kind of don't get in your own way, right? If you know that the use case is going to be solid and you've got a good business case associated with, you don't have to, boil the ocean as I think everyone says in a meeting once or twice in their life, right?
Yeah, and I think you have to consider your work environment. Where is the work actually being done? I've worked with a lot of different providers, and they'll show you their wares, and a lot of times it's somebody who's wearing a headset, working in a clean room, in a air-conditioned environment, and zero noise. And our work environment is the exact opposite of that in every way. And so when you think about these hardware devices, please really take a hard look at your work environment. And it's amazing what an impact wrench can, and the sound of that impact wrench can do to a headset and how it's used. And so you've really got to think about it.
I would just say also look at your setup of where you're going to be delivering your XR. The way ours is set up, we actually have a dedicated room with 12 bays, and then each Quest headset is dedicated to a specific room, and we manage them on ArborX. That's worked really well for us because we're moving around, doing actual hand motions. It's not something you can do sitting down. And we want to bring the headsets into the classroom, but thinking about having multiple people at the same time, doing it in one space where you're having voice recognition and multiple people talking, we haven't yet figured out a way to do that. So just thinking about what they're going to actually be doing in the XR and how you're going to set up not only your actual hardware you're using for that, but the room.
Thank you. So I would now jump to the questions people already brought in on the app. And the first question with the most votes also is, how do you keep up the momentum of stakeholder interest after an initial XR pilot? Any advice?
Can you say that again? Yeah.
So what strategies can you use to keep up the momentum and the stakeholders' interest after you made a pilot? So after you tried something, you made your POC, how can you stay moving?
I say keep collecting data. Just get as much data as you can the whole time so that you can show the justification that it's doing something. Not only survey data of the learners, but also to show actual improvement. Or if you're not using it for learning, whatever it is, your value that you're trying to get out of it, just keep collecting data, and that's really the only thing your stakeholders are going to listen to.
Yeah, for the training professionals out there and your Kirkpatrick level 1, 2, 3, get as much of that survey data as you can, and then run that survey data up the chain of command and make sure that your executive sponsors know how this is being perceived by the users. And so I would definitely do that, and then get testimonials from the users. And if you're lucky enough to have some type of an employee engagement platform, a newsletter or anything like that, there's an article, we're piloting this, and get some quotes and some testimonials from the users, and that'll kind of start generating some interest, and then you just kind of build on it from there.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback off that too. You mentioned platforms, internal platforms. So a lot of what my team will do after we build out a POC, we share it. And that might either be through, we have like a internal YouTube kind of a thing, conferences, virtual conferences, coalitions that are XR focused within Lockheed Martin, and just constantly pushing out, what we've done to try and generate interest, generate leads, and see if, what the work we've done can be built, or can be advanced by someone else.
Yeah, I would. Two things. I completely agree with your approach. Like, if you're the champion of your project, you've got to be basically like, organizational influencer. You have to show and tell all the time. No one, if they're not wearing your headset, they're not experiencing your training, they're not experiencing your thing, they're not going to know unless you make a big deal of it. So make a big deal of it. Do the victory lap. that you got through the pilot. The second thing I would say is don't put and then this is like very practical project management thought process. Don't show the pilot as the end of the project, right? Show a roadmap that gets you 2 or 3 years in the future. You know, like no one's catching a booster rocket without knowing you're going to Mars at some point, right? Show that there's a plan, right? And I think a lot of times people will kind of get caught up in that, honestly, and they'll buy into it faster than, hey, we want to do this one-off thing that's going to cost us $11 billion. Yeah, that's going to be a tough sell. But hey, here's a 3-year plan. We got to hit this target by here. And then when you hit that target, guess what? You get buy-in because you're doing the thing you said you were doing, right? And if I haven't said it enough, equate your learning objectives to dollars and cents. Any instructional designer in the room, if you're not doing that today, you need to be doing that. It's just the way it is.
I have a comment on that one. So one of our sites used a HoloLens, and we had a company develop some training material on how to take and do preventive maintenance on a bioreactor. And who did we have step up to do that training? The site lead, the site head. And so while he was doing the training, he gave the feedback on the training, and we also recorded it for a commercial. I think that is a consideration for you guys to record it and leverage that as advertising and to keep pushing forward with your initiatives.
And just real quick, when you were talking about your instructional designers, and I don't think that we can ignore them. They've been doing some type of instructional design probably for a long time. How are they prepared to incorporate XR into their instructional design? Do they have that knowledge and that skill set? If not, how do you get them where they need to be to design the training that is going to be engaging for the end users?
Thanks. So now, while coming to the end, one last piece of advice for our audience.
Do it. Just freaking do it. It's going to be fine.
Hard to
Yeah,
top.
I'll take a stab at it. Well, for starters, take care of your devices. All right, those things are expensive. Besides that, I would say, I think being proactive and just if you don't have a use case yet, try to find one. Try to see if there's someone out there that can benefit from XR within your company. And if you can find that, then maybe you can get that executive buy-in, or you can make space in the budget. Just I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it, but like if you try, then doors kind of open for you. So yeah, what Eamon said, just a lot longer.
I would just recommend if you're new to lean into this and educate yourself. Learn as much as you can. I was at a similar event not too awfully long ago and was part of a small discussion panel, and the person kind of leading that discussion used the term digital twin. And I had to discreetly remove my phone and under the table Google digital twin. I didn't know what the term was, and that was very early in my process, and so that kind of spurred me to educate myself and really get into it and learn as much about this as you can. If you don't, it makes it hard to ask good questions.
I agree with that. I think XR is such an emerging field that there's like constantly new companies and new technologies being developed. Definitely keep your eyes out and see how these technology can help your organization.
I agree with what everybody said, and I've already given my points about getting data, making sure you have an operating budget, and just really, if you're not using it yet, you can look at there is a value for it and see what that is for your organization, and then use that as your justification.
My last comments would be, if you're new to XR and you want to bring it to your company, you guys are already starting what you should be doing. Is coming out to events like this to learn from all these people around you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of great consultants and companies out here that will share what they've been doing. And so just hope you guys can leverage all those people.
Thank you very much. With that said, if you have any questions or any topics you want to talk about, anybody of us, approach us. Just everybody's around the expo. I'm pretty sure none of them will bite. At least I don't bite. Don't take any responsibilities for the guys, but I think you will be fine. And thank you for your attention.